The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
It's time once again for our weekly podcast with Mark Ingram. He's the athletic director for the UAB Blazers. It's called the UAB Director's Chair, and he joins us right now here on Tony Kurre Radio on our Tony Kurre Radio Podcast Network. Mark, you've had quite the week, my friend. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm excellent. Tony. Thanks so much.
Congratulations on the big hire of Trent Dilfer, a guy who went 6th in the 1994 draft. He's a Super Bowl champion, 48-8 at Lipscomb Academy. The guy's a Pro Bowler and obviously brings a brand and a name to the UAB organization. Let's back it up a little bit. Let's start this week, depending on when people actually hear this podcast, and it'll be up immediately after we do this show. But take me through the week of the hire, and then we'll dive a little deeper into it. But how'd this all come to play? And a lot of people are saying this is the most out-of-the-box hire that they saw coming, man.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to know that. And we certainly wanted to do something we thought that was special, and we wanted to find somebody that was really dynamic. And, you know, we're going into a new conference with the American Athletic Conference, and we're in a position, if we win that championship, we're in a position to compete in the college football playoff. And so we really looked at that as all things that were our goals and in our future leader. And so I've got a friend in Nashville who's plugged into the high school football scene. His son plays there in high school there. And he has for a couple of years complained about Trent Dilfer to me because he's so good.
Yep.
And the team that they had to play is just like, my gosh, this guy, they're just incredibly good. And it feels like an impossible, game when we play these guys, what he's done here. And so I was very aware of where Trent Dilfer was. And so then a local businessman called me that I know and really respect, said, hey, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I know you know what you're doing. He's like, but I happened to meet this person, Trent Dilfer. He goes, wow, he's really impressive. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, thanks. And he's like, can I give him your number? Maybe you guys just talk. And I took the number down, and I thought, there's no way I'm hiring a high school football coach. And I was pretty aggravated with it, to be honest, because we have elevated our athletic program to a new level. We should not be thinking about hiring middle school and high school coaches. Like we're a Division I program. And I'm thinking, what is the mindset of everybody? I've got to find a way to reset,
Mm-hmm.
and especially in the sport of football. And so, I sat on that for a little bit, and I thought, well, what's the harm in calling Trent Dilfer? It was like August, and I he's a guy won the Super Bowl, and so I'll call and have a 10-minute conversation with him. No big deal. Well, 10 minutes, Tony, turned into like an hour and a half, and
wow.
and he, I don't know, like he had to go to practice, and I had to go to a meeting or something. We'd have kept talking, and we talked just all kinds of things, and our backgrounds and where we're from, and who mutual friends that we have, and guys that he played in the league with that maybe I played with in college, and just this sort of thing. And it just was really engaging. And I hung up thinking, wow, okay, that was not what I expected. And so I went back to my search committee at our next meeting. We were talking about kind of where things are and, compiling our list. And this was really that early, July, August. And I said, hey, we're about to start doing Zoom calls. I want to add this guy to our list. And they were like, you're kidding. And they had the same, and they're like, Mark, this is not you. This is not, you said adamantly, this is not what we're going to do. And I said, yeah, I know, but I talked to this guy on the phone, and I think you're going to find him to be very different. And look, guys, we have time. We've got time. While we may have been put in a difficult position back at the end of June, difficult in that way, but now the positive is we got a lot of time to talk to a lot of people, do a lot of background work, and I think we should at least do the courtesy of the call. And they're like, all begrudgingly okay. So we did about 15 of these really structured 1-hour Zoom calls. Mm-hmm. And just by coincidence, Trent Dilfer was first.
Yeah.
And we had the candidate at the end of the hour drop off, and we stayed on the Zoom to deliberate, sort of debrief. What did everybody think? And everybody was like seriously visually jaw dropped
Really?
Everybody was like, wow, because the questions that he answered were the same questions we asked everybody else, but his answer was not like everybody else. His approach to the answer was very different, to get to the same solution, but really a better one. And that just led to more discussion and sort of their endorsement in this understanding of who he really is. And I said it at our press conference. I did not hire a high school coach. What I hired was the sixth pick in the draft, a guy that played 14 years at the quarterback position. But it's not 14 years at left guard. No offense to the left guard or the defense tackle. The quarterback's got to know what everybody's doing, right? 14 years at the highest level, and he was a Pro Bowler and a Super Bowl champion, and he had job offers to coach in the pros and to coach in, be offensive coordinators at other Power 5 programs. He's had all that. Did the analytic work for ESPN. And then what really got me intrigued was his quarterback camp. Trent Dilfer is the head coach of the Elite 11 quarterback camp. He has been for I think it's 10 or 11 years, Tony. That's the most elite passing academy in the country. Every quarterback in the country, if they are elite, they go. And if they wish they were elite, they wish they were there. It is the premier camp in the country, and it's not just one little 2-day camp out in California. It's a series of camps all across the country. It is a massive network of quarterback camps. And he's running it. He's like the CEO of this thing. And so at the same time, he got this calling to try to coach high school football. And he admitted, he's like, I thought it was beneath me. The same way I thought high school coach, is beneath our search. And he said that. He goes arrogantly, Mark, I just thought that was beneath me. He said, but I just really felt like I needed some challenge. I wasn't being challenged in my life. I was working 36 minutes a week for the network. And then after that, I kind of retired, and they gave him this sort of golden parachute when they downsized at ESPN. And he's like, I'm being paid a lot of money by ESPN to not work, and I'm playing a ton of golf. He's like, but I'm not fulfilled. I needed a challenge. So he took on this massive challenge. Tony, the record is like 40, I think it's 44-10. They hadn't won 2 games in 2 years before he got there.
No, he's done a fantastic job. And to your point, I mean, if Trent had never coached a day in his life, I still think it would be a very interesting hire. And you're getting a brand name and a guy that's been on television. The fact that he's been in the National Football League for as long as he was in 14 years, kids love that because they feel like they've got a conduit to take it to the next level. Let me ask you this, and again, you mentioned the fact that he was offered other positions, perhaps as OCs with the Group of Fives or Power 5 schools. Were there other teams in college football that wanted to hire him as a head coach? Did you feel like this was something you needed to pull the trigger on before he was picked by someone else?
Well, there's at least 2 other schools that have interviewed him in the past.
Okay.
And that are I would say peers of ours across the country, not in our league, but other similar size schools, similar programs. And either they didn't like it or he didn't like it. What came to pass on those decisions, I don't know. I don't doubt that there were other people and other inquiries. I'm sure there were. But, what continued to give me confidence in it, Tony, is I started, and this is the benefit of the time, I started calling people that I thought might know him. I've got a really close friend in the Dallas Cowboys organization. I've got a really good dude and a former teammate that you might have heard of named Peyton Manning. I got a buddy who played 7 years in the league named Bubba Miller that was an offensive lineman. He's also in Nashville, coincidentally. So I was able to call these type guys. I got a former teammate of mine that's one of my dearest friends here in Birmingham named Jason Price, who's really plugged into youth football and sort of the on the subject of Elite 11. And so I just started calling, and I called some of UAB's former players, guys like Joe Webb, and, hey, have you ever met him? Have you ever heard anything about him? What do you think? What do you know? What have you heard? And just person upon person telling me what a great guy he is, how inspirational he is, how high energy he is, how he demands excellence. He will not tolerate losing. He won't lose because he just refuses to lose. And that's how he approaches every day, and just things like that. And And the more people I talked to, I mean, I just kept waiting for somebody to say something negative.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like the most negative thing I heard about him is, hey, he's going to demand everybody to play at a high level. Like that was like the negative comment.
That's a good
No,
thing.
I'm not kidding. Like that's what people would say. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing.
It.
He's Mark
He's
Ingram.
Hold everybody around him accountable.
He's
okay.
He's Mark Ingram, the athletic director. This is the UAB director's chair, talking about, of course, the big hire there of Trent Dilfer as the next UAB head coach. Talk a little bit about the open letter. Obviously, that dropped earlier this week from your football team. I've seen this a million times where football players obviously have their coaches back, and I know Bryant Vincent's been there for 5 or 6 years. Talk about that open letter, how important it was for you to know your football players actually cared about their coach, and what happens to Bryant Vincent at this point.
Yeah, so the letter was written by a terrific young man who I think the world of, and actually I had just met with him for 45 minutes in my office about it, and we'd had a great visit, and I still love the kid. He's passionate about his feelings, and I'm proud of him for doing it. I mean, I told him when we met, I said, first of all, I'm not surprised to hear how you feel, and second of all, if you didn't feel this way, I'd be upset. Mm-hmm. I said, Bryant Vincent and this staff, these are all really, really good people. And I said, I've been here for 7.5 years. I've been here as long as most of them. I've known them for a long time. I know their wives. I know their children. One of my kids' best friends is one of their kids. Mm-hmm. It is incredibly personal. And that's what's so difficult about these transitions is the emotion of it all, of trying to separate business from personal feelings and emotion and do what's right for the big picture for the program, and not just for this week and this team. Of course, their feelings are important, but the way college sports works differently than other levels is they're all moving on, but that coach has got to be here long term. And it's not that I felt like Bryant Vincent couldn't do a great job. Bryant Vincent has done an incredible job of sort of keeping this thing together, you know. And you know, one of the things that the letter suggested is how I met with them in June, but not again until this past Monday. Well, it's interesting because it's sort of your what they say, the damned if you do, damned if you don't. There have been several times during the season that I considered going back to the team, and I talked to Bryant Vincent about it. And one of the things he said, which I appreciated, I mean, he was being, you know, sarcastic, but real. He's like, when would have been a good team to do that, Mark? Or when would have been a good time to meet with the team, Mark? He said, would it have been after we lost to Rice? Yeah. Would that have been a good time? What about after we lost to Western Kentucky or Liberty or one of these teams that Florida Atlantic? Like, when would have been a good time to go talk to the team about a possible coaching change? Like, that would have been super insensitive.
Sure.
And so, you know, I don't disagree with the fact that in a perfect world, that would have been great. It's not a perfect world, right?
Well, and the truth of the matter is, the truth
very important.
The truth of the matter is, and I mentioned this morning about the Bill Stewart situation, West Virginia. I mentioned the Mike Price situation. Players up on the podium crying before he actually coached a football game at Alabama, saying that they wanted him as coach. Players are players. They have their roles, and certainly appreciate their passion for the coach they have. They'll always have their coaches back, but first of all, they're not stroking the check. They're not making the deal, and chances are, in 2 or 3 years, they're not going to be at UAB anymore playing football. They'll be moving on to another career, hopefully at the National Football League. He's Mark Ingram, athletic director for the UAB Blazers, talking about Trent Dilfer as the brand new head coach at the UAB Blazers. Talk briefly about Skip Holtz. I know his name came up. Obviously, he had a wonderful season with the Stallions last year. Was he in the mix here?
Skip Holtz is a great coach, a great man, and a person I'm a big fan of. And Skip, so I think some of our fans are kind of, taking their opportunity to share their feelings about Skip. I mean, this guy's been a Division I head football coach for 22 years, and he, walks in the door and 9-1 and wins the USFL championship. Skip Holtz is a pro, man. Yeah. Skip Holtz is an outstanding candidate who we would have been fortunate to have. I mean, I'm a big fan of Skip's, and I respect everybody's opinion, but you got to look at the true body of work in the context of when you take over a program that doesn't have a lot of talent, and then you build it up and then somebody else hires you, and then you build it up and somebody else hires you. Well, then you have less success, and so he got fired, and then he goes to Louisiana Tech, and he was there for 9 seasons. His first year, this is all pre-transfer portal, mind you. His first year was like 4-8, but then he goes like 6 or 7 years of 8, 9, 10 win seasons, including 6 straight bowl victories, and it was the COVID year, 2020. He goes 5-5, and remember, this is back when like your tailback gets COVID, so the whole running back room is quarantined as as contact tracing, and so you got to play a wide receiver at tailback or something.
Yeah.
So he goes 5-5, and then the next year 3-9, and he got fired. And the guy that fired him, Eric Wood, who's a friend, couldn't say enough good things about him. The guy that managed him for the previous 8 years, Tommy McClellan, couldn't say enough good things about him. The guy that one of the guys that worked in fundraising at East Carolina, when I asked him when Skip was there years ago, he said Skip Holtz might be the best human being I've ever worked with. And so these are all things that are important to me. And our fans kind of didn't like the fact that he'd been at Louisiana Tech, and I get that. But really, that's a tough gig over there, man. Yeah. I've been to Ruston, and it's a tough job, and their budget is half of what our budget is. And so to say, well, he was 1-4 against us. Well, he's probably lucky to be 1-4. I mean, what he did over there was an incredible job. And listen, I'm not trying to bash Ruston or Louisiana Tech. It's a hard job, and it's a smaller town. There's a lot of talent in the state of Louisiana, but we have resources here, facilities, and the city of Birmingham that are different. That's all. And listen, I think Skip could have been Skip is a great coach, and is going to get another opportunity because of that.
He is the UAB athletic director. He's Mark Ingram. This is the UAB Director's Chair. We do podcast every single week, and wherever you get your podcast, we're on every major industry. And one of our most listened to podcasts is the UAB Blazer Nation Gets After It. To get back to Bryant Vincent real quickly, and then we'll move on. What is going to happen to Bryant Vincent, just for sake of this open letter from your football team? I know the Auburn Tigers hired Hugh Freeze, and I don't know if Cornell Williams was part of that deal, but certainly it appeased a lot of people that thought he had done a wonderful job towards the end of the Auburn football season. Now he's, I guess, an assistant head coach. I'm not sure what title they gave him, but it was a good look for the Auburn Tigers to and particularly since Cornell obviously had a wonderful college career there, to be part of that staff. Do you believe that Bryant will stay with the UAB Blazers?
Well, I tell you this, he's been a total pro through this process. I've been really impressed and with how he's conducted himself. I shouldn't be surprised. I'm not surprised. He and I have had a great relationship this season, working together. We were friendly before, but we did not have the opportunity to interact the way that we have since July 1, and I've really enjoyed it. And he and Trent both did an amazing job yesterday with the team. He and the entire staff was in the meeting right before our press conference. Trent met with the team, and like I said, Bryant Vincent and the whole staff was in there. And so Bryant went in and told them what an honor it's been to coach them, and how much he's enjoyed it, and he loves them, and he loves this place, and he wants them to finish the right way, and he just handled it just right. And he said, and I want you to meet your new coach. It's okay to, he's just like, it's going to be okay, guys, and that was an important message, I think, especially coming from him. So he brought me in, and I introduced Trent, and then Trent came in, and Trent said right away, I know you're hurting, and he said, I know that your coach is a guy you love. I can see it all over your body language and your faces. He says, I saw the letter, and he says, I applaud you for having the courage to write it. Good for you. And he says, Bryant Vincent's your coach. I'm not trying to come in here and take over things like that. He says, I'm going to be at your practices. I'm going to try to get to know you. I want to get to know you. Let's make sure we all have each other's phone numbers. Let's be engaged with each other's life and conversation. And so Coach Vincent and the staff are going to coach us through the bowl game. They will all, meet and interview with Coach Dilfer and, figure out, who fits into what right spot. And and everybody has an opportunity, player and coach, to sort of audition here over the next, 16, 17 days. I think it went better than I could have ever anticipated. And at the end of the meeting, Coach Dilfer says, "Has anybody got any questions?" And as you would imagine, there weren't any. And he says, "Okay, I'm going to give the team back to Bryant Vincent now. Again, he's your coach that's going to carry you through the bowl." And it was just really impressive on both of their part, both Bryant Vincent's, the way he managed the front side and the way Coach Dilfer came in and applauded the staff and the team and specifically Coach Vincent about how they've handled themselves through it's just hard, man.
Yeah, I know.
It's like it's like you're married and somebody goes, "Hey, would you like to stay married with this woman you dated and this person who you signed a contract with?" But possibly another person that you're going to be married to. You don't know their name. You don't know anything about them. Which would you choose? Yeah. Well, my wife would choose the other, but
that happens a lot more than you think too, by the way.
but you know what I'm saying? Like that's
sure.
That's the impossible question that these guys are being asked. And so for all the right reason, they are supportive of Coach Vincent, and I'm not supportive of Bryant Vincent. I am also a Bryant Vincent fan, and so what was really cool, not only what I've just said about the meeting itself, but then to see players after the meeting and a lot of staff circle back into this team meeting room, because we were kind of talking, me and Trent and some of the other administrators, some of our other athletic department staff came over after and just started introducing themselves. And then players started coming in one by one to introduce themselves. And I think they just need a minute, and it's all emotional for them and difficult. And I'm excited about this growth opportunity, just as we all go through things in life that are challenging. Trust me, Tony, this is not the hardest thing these young people are going to go through.
No.
Right? You and I as adults know that. But as an 18 to 22-year-old, you may not know that.
Yeah.
And, he shared the loss of his son with them. He's like, "Look, I'm not saying that I've been through hardship, but I've been through some really tough times." And he says, "And I've been through some really great times in the NFL and Super Bowl champion." He's like, "I've been, kind of at extreme highs and what I thought were extreme lows. And I bet all of you have too." And it was just that meeting between Coach Vincent and that staff and those players and Trent Dilfer was really powerful. It was really, really special to be a part of it.
UAB Blazers get ready to play in the Bahamas Bowl. Congratulations to going to the bowl game for the UAB Blazers. Of course, they get that victory at the end of the season to ensure that happening with their sixth victory. Let me ask you this, Mark Ingram, athletic director for the UAB Blazers, coming from a high school. Obviously, he's not done a college recruiting, and we know how important recruiting is. That's question number one. What kind of recruiter is Trent Dilfer? And second of all, what does this do for your NIL? We've talked about the NIL extensively here with you. I know how you feel about it. It's a necessary evil in the sport now of college football, and obviously it's very, very important to have that money, those coffers filled with cash, if in fact you can, for potential recruits and players coming into organization. Has he talked about that? And how do you up-ramp that aspect to college football for the UAB Blazers?
I'll say this about NIL. On the 15 people that we did Zoom calls with, there was only one, and I won't say who. There was only one. It was not Trent Dilfer. There was only one who really specifically said, "Here's what we need to do. Here's how much money we need." Everybody else was sort of like, you got to recruit kids who want to play football. You got to recruit kids that fit into your scheme. You got to recruit kids who see bigger picture than that. So that was really refreshing. Now, look, it's real. It's not there. Trent Dilfer's brand is so big. Our plan and our belief and what I've seen already from just, overwhelming text messages and phone calls that I've gotten from people around the country, I have no doubt that his brand will assist us in that effort. On the subject of recruiting, one of the misnomers on recruiting with a head coach is they'll say, "Oh, he's not tied to the state." Well, the head coach is not the person that goes out on the road recruiting. It's the assistant coaches that go out on the road recruiting. So the key here is for him to have a great plan on who his assistants are going to be, and I feel like he does. The head coach is a closer.
Yeah.
And if you think that Trent Dilfer can't close a deal, you hadn't watched Trent Dilfer. Okay. So I'm very confident in his ability to close the deal. And I feel good about the people he wants to put together who, yes, have ties in the state, ties around the South, and around the country.
Mark, thank you so much for your time and congratulations. I know this was a huge hire for you, not only from a personal standpoint, but certainly from an athletic director standpoint. And I know that every UAB Blazer fan out there is super excited about. And I think it's always cool when we all have short lists and to have a name that quite frankly wasn't on anyone's list and has such a brand name like Trent Dilfer, I think was just a huge get. Congratulations on the splash. We'll catch up next week, brother, okay?
Hey, thank you so much, Tony. Have a great day.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.